The book of 2 Thessalonians. This short letter tackles one of the most disorienting experiences in Christian life. What do you do when you've been told that everything you believed was wrong, that you missed it, that the end has already come? The Thessalonians were rattled by false teaching about Christ's return. Paul writes to steady them, clarify the truth, and call them back to faithful living.
That sounds unsettling, being told you've missed something that important.
It would have been deeply unsettling, and with that said, hello to everyone out there joining us and welcome to the OpenBibleLab podcast. I'm Caleb.
And I'm Grace. We're glad you decided to join us as we journey through every book of the Bible, and particularly in today's episode on the book of 2 Thessalonians.
That's right, Grace, and no matter whether you're brand new to the Bible and never even heard of this book we refer to as 2 Thessalonians, or if you've read it many times, this episode is for you.
Exactly right. No background required here, because we're walking through it together one step at a time. So Caleb, let's start with the basics. Who wrote this letter?
The letter identifies Paul as its author, along with Silvanus and Timothy, the same team that wrote 1 Thessalonians. However, 2 Thessalonians is one of the letters where some scholars have raised questions about authorship.
What's the basis for the debate?
A few things. The style and tone feel different from 1 Thessalonians to some readers, more formal, less warm. There's also a tension some see between the eschatology of the two letters. In 1 Thessalonians, Paul emphasizes that the day of the Lord will come suddenly, like a thief. In 2 Thessalonians, he describes signs that must happen first. Some scholars think this represents a development that suggests a different author.
So could someone else have written it in Paul's name?
That's one theory, that it was written by a follower of Paul's after his passing, addressing a new situation. But many scholars still accept Pauline authorship, arguing that the differences can be explained by the different problems Paul was addressing. 1 Thessalonians comforts, 2 Thessalonians corrects. Different situations call for different tones.
That makes sense. When was it written?
If Paul wrote it, it was likely composed shortly after 1 Thessalonians, perhaps a few months later, around 51 AD. News had reached Paul that the Thessalonians had become confused again, and he wrote to address the new problems.
So this is a follow-up letter.
Exactly. It presupposes 1 Thessalonians and responds to developments that came after it.
What was the situation? What had gone wrong?
Two main problems. First, someone had taught the Thessalonians, possibly through a letter falsely attributed to Paul, that the day of the Lord had already come. This caused panic and confusion. Second, some believers had stopped working, possibly because they thought the end was so imminent that there was no point. They were becoming idle and disruptive.
So they had misapplied their eschatology.
Yes, their hope for Christ's return had become unbalanced, either causing panic or irresponsibility. Some were so rattled they thought they had missed the main event of cosmic history. Others used the expectation of the end as an excuse to abandon normal life. Paul writes to restore proper perspective on both fronts.
That feels pretty relevant. I've seen both extremes today.
It's remarkably timely. End-time speculation still causes panic in some circles and apathy in others. Paul's corrective applies across the centuries.
Okay, what about the structure? How does the letter flow?
2 Thessalonians is very short, only 3 chapters, but it addresses these issues directly. Chapter 1 opens with thanksgiving and encouragement for the Thessalonians' faith under persecution. Paul assures them that God will bring justice, relief for the oppressed, and judgment for oppressors when Jesus returns.
So there's vindication coming.
Yes, and notice how Paul frames it. He doesn't call for revenge or violent resistance. He simply affirms that God is just and will repay. The believer's job isn't to execute justice themselves, it's to endure faithfully, trusting that God will make things right. That's a profound model for how to handle injustice.
Trust God with justice, focus on faithfulness.
Exactly. Chapter 2 is the theological heart of the letter. Paul addresses the false teaching head on. He says the day of the Lord has not come yet. Certain things must happen first, including a rebellion and the appearance of the man of lawlessness. He's trying to calm their fears with clarity.
Wait, the man of lawlessness? That sounds ominous.
It is. We'll come back to it. It's one of the most debated passages in Paul's letters. Then chapter 3 is practical. Paul deals with the idleness problem. He commands them to keep working, to not grow weary in doing good, and to distance themselves from those who refuse to live responsibly.
Let me see if I have this. Chapter 1, encouragement and assurance of justice. Chapter 2, correction about the timing of Christ's return. Chapter 3, command to work and live faithfully.
That's it exactly.
What genre is this?
It's an epistle, a corrective pastoral letter. Paul is addressing specific confusion and misconduct. It's more direct than 1 Thessalonians, less tender because the situation called for clarity and even confrontation.
So the warmth of 1 Thessalonians is balanced by the firmness here.
Right, both are pastoral, but they meet different needs.
Okay, let's get into the content. What are the big themes?
The biggest theme is the proper understanding of Christ's return, what scholars call eschatology. The Thessalonians were destabilized because they thought they'd missed it. Paul corrects this by giving them signs to watch for, a great apostasy or rebellion and the revealing of the man of lawlessness, who opposes God and exalts himself.
Can I pause you there? Who is the man of lawlessness?
Great question, and one Christians have debated for centuries. Paul describes him as someone who sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God. He's currently being restrained by someone or something, but when the restrainer is removed, he will be revealed, and then Jesus will destroy him at his coming.
That's intense imagery.
It is. Interpretations vary widely. Some see the man of lawlessness as a specific future figure, an antichrist. Others see him as a symbol of opposition to God that appears throughout history. Some early readers thought he referred to Roman emperors. The truth is, Paul doesn't give us enough detail to be certain.
So there's mystery built into the passage.
There is, and that's worth holding loosely. Paul's main point isn't to satisfy curiosity about the future, it's to assure the Thessalonians that the end hasn't happened yet because these events haven't occurred.
So the signs are meant to bring clarity, not fear.
Exactly. They're meant to stabilize, not sensationalize. Paul isn't feeding curiosity about future events. He's addressing a pastoral emergency. The Thessalonians needed to know they hadn't missed Christ's return. Once they understood that certain things had to happen first, they could relax and return to faithful living.
That's a much healthier approach to prophecy than I usually see.
I agree. Eschatology should steady us, not destabilize us.
What else stands out in the letter?
Another major theme is perseverance under suffering. Chapter 1 affirms that the Thessalonians are being persecuted, but says their endurance is evidence of God's righteous judgment, meaning their faith proves they're worthy of the kingdom they're suffering for. And God will repay, rest for the afflicted, judgment for the afflictors.
So there's a future reckoning.
Yes, Paul isn't calling them to passivity in the face of injustice. He's pointing them toward hope. God sees. God will act. Justice is coming.
That's reassuring for anyone who's suffering.
It is, and it connects to a broader biblical theme. God vindicates his people.
What about the idleness problem? How does Paul handle that?
Firmly. In chapter 3, Paul commands those who are idle to settle down and work. He reminds them that when he was with them, he worked with his own hands, not because he had to, but to set an example. He even says, if anyone is not willing to work, let him not eat.
That's pretty direct.
It is, but notice the context. These weren't people who couldn't work. They were people who chose not to, apparently because they thought the end was so near that work didn't matter. They were becoming busybodies, meddling in others' affairs instead of minding their own.
So hope for Christ's return shouldn't lead to irresponsibility.
Exactly. Faithful waiting is active waiting, staying engaged in life, work, and community. And Paul gives himself as an example. He says, "We were not idle when we were with you, nor did we eat anyone's bread without paying for it, but with toil and labor we worked night and day." He modeled what he taught.
That's integrity. He didn't just tell them, he showed them.
And he expected them to imitate that example. The Christian life isn't about withdrawal from the world while waiting for escape. It's about faithful presence.
Are there key verses that capture the heart of the letter?
One is 2 Thessalonians 2:15. "So then, brothers, stand firm and hold to the traditions that you were taught by us, either by our spoken word or by our letter." Paul is calling them to anchor themselves in what they've already received, not to be blown around by every new teaching.
That's stabilizing. Stick to what you know is true.
Yes, and another key verse is 3:13. As for you, brothers, do not grow weary in doing good. It's a simple exhortation, but it's important. In a confusing time, keep doing what's right. Don't let the confusion derail your faithfulness.
That's practical wisdom.
Very practical. The letter ends with a blessing and Paul's signature. He notes that he's writing the greeting in his own hand, which is a sign of authenticity. Apparently, he was concerned about forged letters circulating.
That's interesting. So false letters were already a problem?
Even in the first century, people had to discern what was authentic.
Okay, how does 2 Thessalonians fit into the bigger biblical story?
2 Thessalonians continues the New Testament's teaching about the day of the Lord, a concept rooted in the Old Testament prophets. The prophets spoke of a day when God would intervene decisively, bringing judgment and salvation. Paul identifies that day with Christ's return. The promise of divine justice, the hope of vindication, the call to faithful endurance, these are threads that run through the whole Bible.
So it's connected to a much larger storyline.
Deeply connected. And 2 Thessalonians also shows us the early church grappling with how to live in the already but not yet. Christ has come, but he's coming again. How do you live in that tension? That's the question every generation of Christians faces.
And for Christians today, what does 2 Thessalonians offer?
I think it offers steadiness. We live in a world full of sensational claims about the end times, predictions, timelines, panic. 2 Thessalonians says, don't be quickly shaken. Hold to what you've been taught. Don't let speculation unsettle you. And keep living faithfully in the meantime.
That's really grounding.
It is. And the letter also challenges our work ethic and responsibility. Hope for Christ's return isn't an excuse to check out of life. If anything, it should make us more engaged, more diligent, more generous, more committed to doing good.
So eschatology should fuel faithfulness, not escapism.
That's the heart of it. And I think 2 Thessalonians also speaks to how we handle uncertainty. The Thessalonians didn't have all the answers about the future, and neither do we. But Paul's counsel is to hold to what's been reliably taught, trust in God's justice, and stay engaged in daily faithfulness. That's wisdom for any era.
Okay, if I were going to summarize 2 Thessalonians for someone, what would I say?
I feel like I've been doing all the talking here. How about you tell me what you think you would say?
Okay. 2 Thessalonians is Paul's follow-up letter to a church that had become confused about Christ's return. Some thought the day of the Lord had already come, others had stopped working. Paul clarifies that certain events must happen first, encourages them to stand firm, and commands them to live responsibly. The whole letter is about staying steady and faithful in confusing times.
That's excellent. I'd add one note. It's also about hope. Even with all the talk of the man of lawlessness and judgment, the letter ends with encouragement. Paul prays that the Lord would direct their hearts into God's love and Christ's steadfastness. The darkness isn't the last word. God's love is.
That's a good addition.
This has been really helpful. 2 Thessalonians is short, but there's a lot going on.
There is. It's worth reading slowly. All right, before we close, final takeaways.
3 things. First, don't be quickly shaken. False teaching and sensational claims have always existed. Anchor yourself in what's been reliably passed down. When confusion swirls around you, return to the solid ground of trustworthy teaching. Second, faithful waiting is active. Hope for Christ's return should fuel diligence, not idleness. Keep working, keep serving, keep doing good. Live as if today matters, because it does. Third, God will bring justice. If you're suffering for your faith, take heart. God sees, and he will set things right. Vindication is coming.
I love that. Steady faith, active hope, confident trust in God's justice.
That'll wrap up our teaching today about 2 Thessalonians.
Thank you so much for listening today. If this episode helped you understand 2 Thessalonians in a new way, we'd love for you to explore our whole series. We're going through the Bible book by book.
OpenBibleLab is dedicated to creating free resources to explore the Bible, and we are supported by the generosity of our listeners. You can support OpenBibleLab by listening, sharing, liking, and commenting on our videos, or by visiting our website, openbiblelab.com.
See you next time.
Hey, still there? Good. quick announcement. We've created a free community on School, spelled Skool, where you can find Bible study resources, connect with other listeners, and keep the conversation going beyond the podcast. And here's the thing, it's new. Really new. So if you join now, you're not just joining a community, you're helping us build one. We could use people like you in our corner. Check the description for the link. Thanks for being here. Seriously.